What type of clients are you sourcing property deals for? Now, I've had to ask this question within our own company, and we've created a model that allows us to know the profitable clients from the unprofitable ones. And also with consulting with multiple clients on growing their property investment and sourcing companies, it's been a crucial aspect of growing consistent revenue. So there's a couple of classifications that we use and the investor type that made this business much easier to attract the right type of investors so that you can continuously grow your business. So if you want to know more about that, keep watching. Just as an overview then of the types of clients that we work with. The first type of client is wholesale, and the second type of client is retail. Now, wholesale is where you're selling deals to people who are actively in property. This doesn't necessarily mean that they've done deals before, but the best type of clients, a subsection of these that we're actually looking for, are people who have done deals before and are actively buying. Those are the best type of clients and the most profitable types of clients within the wholesale division of the company. Within this wholesale classification then, there's a type of client that you don't want to work with. These are the ones that have just been on property courses or watched a bunch of YouTube videos, and they've seen what's possible in terms of what type of deals you can get, because obviously the headline figures on these courses and videos are crazy numbers. So they are led to believe that there's examples of all money out deals all the time, crazy returns, unrealistic high expectations, because that's what's been set into their psyche, right? You know the types if you tried to sell deals before, and you could probably come back to these people a year later. They've not done a deal because they're still waiting for the deal that will be astronomically better than all the other deals out there, right? Because they've just seen that deal. They are not thinking about consistently buying, and that's why we look at the classification of wholesale, where there's people who are active buyers who are just constantly buying because they know that the consistency over time is what gets you to where you want to be, not just looking for those one-off crazy deals, right? By now then you understand that there's a sweet spot in order to target the right classification in the wholesale category. And this is the problem, right? Most people don't spend enough time qualifying their list. So they build a list of investors, and they're going to be a mix of people who are qualified and the people who are unqualified. But I can guarantee that there's going to be far more unqualified people in there than there are going to be qualified. And if you don't qualify them, then you're just going to have a bloated list. So take a client of ours example. They had 800 investors on their list, and they put a near all money out deal onto their list, and only 4 people responded. That means that the responsiveness and the classification of the clients that they wanted were not actively on that list, because they weren't paying attention to the types of quality as they were bringing people in, right? So you need to be able to separate the qualified from the unqualified in order to have a good high quality list, so that when you find a deal, you're able to send it to those people and they're actively going to buy that deal, because it's so risky on the other end if you go out and find these deals and you put it to a list of people who you don't really know they're going to buy or not. You can't have that predictability and scalability within your business if you don't have that in place. The key message here then is quality over quantity, and we need to get rid of the tire kickers, which is the hardest thing to do, by the way. Like, once you've got that engaged list of buyers and you know their criteria, it becomes much easier. So we need to know exactly what type of deals they're going to buy, because we want something there that they've told us exactly what they want to buy, and they've given you proof that they can back it up that they will buy those deals. We need to know that they will actively buy them, and they've got high chance of going through with the deal. And then if you know that there's people on the other end of the list who are actively going to buy, you can have security knowing that that's going to happen, but also you've got repeatability and scalability, which is the most important part of any business model, is making sure that it can be done over and over again. And that way then you can continue to grow the business. So if you're going to choose a wholesale classification of people to work with, you need to make sure you've got these things in place. The other type of client then is a retail client. Retail clients can be differentiated in the sense that they typically haven't invested in property before, and they have more reasonable expectations of what can be delivered. And the reason for that is because they haven't gone on the property courses, and they haven't seen these crazy all money out deals. They haven't really been exposed to that. So their barometer then, let's say, is more of what you could probably find on a stock market return as an average return. So the idea then is that you've got more reasonable expectations, which makes it easier for you to find the types of deals. But the problem then with these type of clients is they need more hand holding. So they're going to need more hand holding throughout the process, and that means that you're going to have to do things in order to fulfill for those type of clients, right? So there's different challenges for each type of client, pros and cons. So you just need to understand the elements of those when working with and choosing which type of classification that you want to work with. Ideal sourcing client then is somebody with a high paying salary. This typically comes from their corporate role or their business, and we personally work with a lot of dentists and doctors, and they obviously don't have much time to then go out and pursue property on their own. So we have the ability then to invest on their behalf because they're going to be spending most of their time doing the work, right? So they're in work, they're growing, or they've got their businesses that they're growing, and that's their main focus. So they shouldn't be focused on investing. They should be focused on getting more cash flow in so that accelerates their ability to invest, and that's how they spend their time. And then we do the investments on their behalf, right? So they can't be running around doing all these things because they just don't have the time. And the benefit then is that you've got the right type of client who's got a high salary, who's not really thinking about, I want to get involved in this thing, because it's not really worth their time to be involved with menial things. But they need those kind of things done in order to successfully invest in property. So they don't even think about getting involved in the deal, which is what you want, right? They just want their problem solved. So in our business, we've got these, they're our portfolio building clients that we have clearly defined ideal client profiles that we target. And the key differences then come down to the knowledge of property that they have and the time constraints that are upon them. When we think of time constraints, then it comes down to things like distance. A lot of the clients are at a distance and they're investing from not directly within the local area. So they're either in London or they're in further afield, like we've got international clients as well. But even just an hour and a half away, it means that there's some friction between them investing. So there's the benefit there. A lot of the times, if they're in further afield and they're further down south than the south of the UK, it's going to cost more money. So because the properties, if they were buying locally, would cost more money, we're able to invest where it's essentially cheaper for them to invest and get started. So that means there's a benefit there. So you have to think about what are the benefits that you have to your area of investments and the types of deals you're sourcing for. What kind of benefit, unique selling point that you could bring to that client. We then look at knowledge then a bit differently, because we look at it as the stages of awareness. Basically, how deep are they into the property market and their understanding of the types of deals that can be done. That's the way I look at it. And there's a great book called Breakthrough Advertising by Eugene Schwartz. It's an old school classic book, and I've been able to read that book. And from the last decade in marketing and advertising through our marketing agency, working with clients and using it to find the most ideal clients for our clients, essentially, right? It's been really, really insightful, and I've been able to transfer that knowledge from my marketing background to the property industry, so that allows us to pinpoint the exact type of clients that we want to work with on a consistent basis. That allows us to mean that they're profitable and can increase our revenue. The first stage then of the awareness is the unaware. So unaware stage is where people are unaware that they even have a problem. So the key thing here is that awareness stages, the reason why you do anything is because you have a uncomfortable situation in a sense, right? And you move towards comfort, away from pain and towards pleasure. That's the reason why we do something. And the reason why you've pursued property in this sense is because you had some sort of pain that was unresolved and you wanted to solve that pain through property. And it's exactly the same as why anybody gets to any of these markets and goes to do anything, is typically because it's pain and pleasure. Pleasure-seeking mechanism is what our whole lives are essentially built around, is that we want to be in a more comfortable situation. That is something that we want to do. So if we explain it like that, you understand that problems then cause people to move and take some sort of action. So take action to get into property. That's what we mean by this. So the unaware stage then, it can basically show itself in many different ways. So the classification of the problem can be that they're unaware that they're even losing money in the bank. They're unaware that they can retire much earlier. They're unaware that they can spend more time with their children. So if they knew that this was a problem, right, they know that I'm feeling pressure because I'm losing money in the bank, or I'm going to be working until I'm 65, or I'm not spending enough time with my kids. They're not aware of those problems in their life, so they don't do anything about it because they're not aware of the problem. We could go on here, but all you need to think about is, what are the reasons you got into property in the first place? Once you understand the reasons you got into property, then you can start to see the problems that might have been within your life, and then you had a activation energy, let's say, for you to then make a change, and you shifted in levels of awareness. You understood that it was a problem. So for these people, then it's a bit different because the problem simply isn't big enough and for them to become aware. So what that means is they'll just continue to go on with their everyday lives, and that means working the 9 to 5. You know, they might never become aware. Like, there's genuinely a possibility that these people never become aware that the problem is even big enough, so they don't have that activation energy, or like, that's what I call it essentially, is activation energy for them to move to another level of awareness within the market. The way that they become aware then is maybe something changes in their lives. So that's a big reason for them to then think about this problem and it becomes real. Or it could be the sense that they see an ad, they see a post, they see marketing, and marketing just works on getting them aware of the problem, right? We highlight the pain that they've already got and then make it bigger. And that's what marketing is making sure that they have a bigger pain and really shining a light on that pain so that they can then do something about it, because the problem is big enough for them to make a change within their lives. Next step then in the awareness levels is the problem aware. So they may be aware of some or all of the problems that we've stated above, and the idea is that we create an open loop in their mind. So when you create an open loop in somebody's mind, then the problem is aware. Naturally, people want to close the loop. So the only way that that really happens is if someone's problem is big enough. Now, just because they're aware of the problem doesn't mean that the problem is big enough. Take, for example, diet. Right, so diet's an easy one. So say I've put on weight and I'm aware that I've put on weight, but I might not do anything about it because I've only put on a little bit of weight. It's not like a major issue for me. Whereas if I put a considerable amount of weight on, then I might be thinking, oh, this is enough for me to really do something about it. So I can be aware of the problem, but the size of the problem is what makes me take action, really. So action taking can be really about exasperating the problem. So as marketers and as business owners, our goal is to make sure that we're highlighting the problem as effectively as possible. If we can highlight the problem, then people will look to find a solution, which is the natural loop of open and closed loop of trying to solve problems. We're ultimately problem solvers, really, and we try and solve problems to the best of our ability. So that open loop and the cognitive bias, then the mind really drives us towards closing open loops. And if they're feeling the problem and it's getting bigger, then they're likely to do something about it. Next stage then is solution aware. So at this stage, they are aware of one or many of the different solutions in order to solve their problems. So this could be stocks, property, crypto, Boolean, business, whatever it is. There's a load of different options that they can use to essentially stop the problems that they're facing. And our job then is to make them see our solution as the best solution for them. So we're picking property in this case. The right option for them to invest is in property. So the idea is that they're ultimately aware of that solution, and the next thing we want to do is make them aware of our service and what we can provide. So, but first we need to make aware of our solution overall, right? So if we're making people aware of property as an opportunity vehicle and a vehicle that can get them to where they want to be, then that's what we're trying to do. So the solution aware stage, we need to market to people where we're selling them on the idea of property investment and why that is the best option for them. They're ultimately then going to be aware of the results that they want because they've got an understanding of how they want the problem solved, but they're not aware of the results that your service then can provide them. The next stage then is your solution aware. So they're aware of your solutions, particularly they're aware of property. So they already know property and they're aware of you. So they may also be aware of other people's solutions. Now, this is where it gets a bit tricky and sticky because they're unsure if your solution is right for them. So specifically what it is that you offer. So if they've been in the market for a while, they might have tried other people's stuff. And this is where you get people who've tried other, say, sourcing companies, or they've tried other things within property and they might say it doesn't work or they've not had a good experience. So we pick up a lot of clients like that who've been in the market and maybe they've been burned. But also the other problem is that they have been in it for a long time, or they've got exposed to all the different marketing messages. They start thinking thinking about these crazy returns and all money out deals, and then their expectations get really, really high. And as we know, that it's possible, but it's just not probable that they're going to be able to get these deals in many cases. So they set their expectations way too high because they've been lurking in the Facebook groups, so they've been watching stuff on YouTube, and it's led them to believe that this is the norm and this is what's happening. If I don't get this, then I'm not doing a deal. Not the type of clients you want, right? The ideal solution then is that they are comparing your stuff to something like a stock market instead, where they've got more realistic expectations, or they're comparing it. Ultimately, the best place is just the returns in the bank. If they're looking at it in that regard, then you've got a much better competitive advantage. Whereas if they've been sold on these ridiculous claims, then you have a harder time to then reposition them and then get them to think correctly about investments. The final stage then is deal aware. So at this stage, they ultimately know about your service and they just need to understand a bit more about what it is you're offering. The people here are the most aware of all the people. So they're most aware of the problem. They're really down the funnel where they're trying to look at your case studies. They maybe talk to your clients. They watch sales videos. They've been on your website. They filled out a form. So they're at the stage where they're actively looking at working with you. So this is the ideal scenario then. They just need the deal put in front of them. All they need then is a good enough reason to act and buy, such as your price is going up that gets them off the ledge and then gets them to take action. If you have a good enough reason, maybe it's additional bonuses for purchasing now. Something that doesn't devalue your business is the best thing, right? We don't want something that's going to devalue them, but this is where your offer really comes to mind and honing in on the offer that you present to your clients. If we market into the different types of clients that we mentioned at these awareness stage levels, we first need to understand how long have they been searching for a service like this. And the second thing we need to understand then is what have they done in the past to solve this problem. Those will give us some really key insight in order to how we market to these people and solve their problems. If we have this information, then we can then put those clients into two different types of buckets, which is the wholesale and retail clients that we mentioned earlier. We personally work with both different types of clients and they have a different process and we keep them separate in terms of branding. And the reason for that is because we don't want to confuse the marketing message. If we're saying one thing to one client and one thing to another, it's going to go completely over their heads. So we need to make sure that we're essentially catering towards these different levels of awareness to make sure that we're talking to the right type of person and distilling the message in the right type of way to them. It's your choice then ultimately to decide what type of clients that you want to work with. Each have their positives and negatives. I personally feel that the most scalable model to target is retail types of clients, but it's the hardest to do when you're first getting started into the business, especially if you haven't got many clients at all, because essentially with retail clients, they're going to need a lot more proof and hand holding that you can do the thing that you say you're going to do, because they're not even used to buying property. So they've got to see competence, a lot more competence then from you that you can do it. Whereas more sophisticated investor, let's say, or more of a wholesale client, they'll be able to do better due diligence on the deals and they're going to be having a lot more knowledge around property typically. So it's easier then to target wholesale clients because they're easier to find as well. So they're easy to find, you know where to look, you have your right marketing where you can put it in front of the people who are going to be ideal for wholesale type deals. Wholesale type investors then can do more complicated deals, which leads itself to HMOs, SAs, and other kind of more complex strategies where there's more mechanics behind them. However, they're less likely to pay upfront for those property deals, which can hurt your cash flow. Whereas the retail client, we can get them to pay upfront, which is ultimately the best solution for us. But we do have to put a lot more in, which warrants us charging that upfront fee. So let me know which type of sourcing clients that you want to work with and why in the comments. It'd be really interesting to hear what kind of things you do now, but also if this video has changed your mind maybe or got you thinking about other opportunities. I've also got an exact breakdown on how to grow a property sourcing business to 20 to 30 grand per month. It's linked in the description below. It's the exact thing that we use with our clients, so just take it, steal it, run with it. It goes through your ideal investor, and once you found them, how you continue to grow that business to gain consistent revenue. So go check that video out. In the meantime, I'm gonna catch you on the next one.